guys, we are back. Hey, Elsa.
Hi.
Who do we have on today?
We have Renee Olstead, and I'm very excited because she actually gave me this to show. She is a sex therapist, and she works with sex workers, which is so important for our podcast because, you know, we want to support everybody. And I find it so fascinating that they finally have therapy for the adult industry, which did not exist when I was in it.
So
they
important.
even have an organization called Pineapple Support. On here. And yeah, so we have her today, and she's going to give us some good facts and really answer our questions logically.
I'm excited. I want to pick her brain.
Yeah.
Love it. Hey guys, we are back. How you doing, Elsa?
Really good. How are you?
Good. What have you been up to?
Honestly, just chilling. I went and got my chakras realigned, and I feel like it really worked.
That is such an LA thing.
I know, it's such an LA thing, and I actually feel like it really helped me meditate for an hour, and I'm gonna go do it once a week, even just to like meditate and like lay down on this heated crystal bed thing while she like plays music was good enough.
I love
for
that.
me to, like,
I believe in
zone
it.
out.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
I mean, you can tell when you feel it after. I've had my chakras realigned before, or like the
I
crystals
felt
they
good.
put at certain
yeah,
points.
I really thought it,
Yes.
it helped me.
Yeah, nothing bad about that.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Today we are joined by the lovely Renee Olstead. She is a therapist from Shape Clinic in Beverly Hills that caters to sex workers. Hi, Renee.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
You too. You look gorgeous.
Thank you.
Actually, you with the red. Oh my
switched it up.
gosh. You got the red lip matching.
Yeah, we'll see.
I love it.
We'll see.
Love it.
With my pale skin.
We all showed up. We are here and we're having a fabulous time.
Yeah, go.
What's it like working at the clinic? So what do you do exactly? Can you tell
So
our
I am an
listeners?
associate marriage and family therapist, and I work at the Shape Center Beverly Hills under Dr. Shannon Chavez. My specialization is providing affirmative care to members of the sex work community and the adult industry.
And what's that kind of like? Who applies to that?
Well, anyone who works under the umbrella of sex work. So sex work is a pretty big term, right? It encompasses everything from, you know, some would say go-go dancers all the way to people who are more direct providers, people who are street-based workers, people who are dominatrixes. If you make your money off of your sexual desirability, you're usually considered under the umbrella.
Do people usually go to you to help leave what they're doing or help actually have a therapist that's going to help? You know, because I had trouble when I was in the adult industry finding one that wouldn't, like, they would always shame the industry. Oh, but it's because of the industry. So do you help people almost like feel more stable in that, do you feel? Or it just is kind of all over?
I will support people if they're looking to leave the industry, but obviously that is not my goal. My goal is to provide whatever care they need and for the reasons that they, you know, that they actually want care.
Yeah.
So one problem that you just spoke to is that a lot of times if you are, you know, an adult performer or just under the sex work umbrella, going to therapy means getting pathologized. So it's a sort of like, oh, I'm wondering what's wrong with you. It's just something that they'll hear sometimes. And it's so backwards and it's so wrong. And it's something that I'm so passionate about providing an affirming space so people can come in and talk about like their sister, if they want to talk about their sister, or, you know, if they're coming in with, they want to focus on a executive functioning. That's something that we can stay with, but ultimately providing informed care. Also, so someone isn't explaining to their therapist how their business works and what's going on. It should be a safe space. So people can talk about bad days when they have bad days without it being about, I don't know, changing careers.
How'd you become so passionate about it?
Well, there's limits to what I can disclose when I have my therapist hat on.
Oh, okay.
However, I do have a lot of friends that are within the sex work community. And I would hear this over and over again, that they would have this experience where they went in to talk about something, you know, completely unrelated to their work, and the therapist would bring it back to their industry. But to take this further, I also think having an informed approach, I think can be useful as well when navigating some of the challenges that are specific to the industry, like navigating stigma, and dealing with a lot of the things that come along with that.
I never
Yeah,
thought of
social
that.
media, like that's hard. Like, you know, just the way people talk to people in the
And
industry.
therapists being like, you know, judgy about it or whatever when you're going there to like
It's surprising, right?
yeah, I mean, it does sound like a niche for like, I mean, specific sex workers because like if I'm gonna, and I'm just imagining if I'm gonna go into a therapist, a lot of them are gonna make it like what you were saying, which is like, it's because of sex work or whatever. It's like, no, I want to do my job, but I also would like some support.
No, it's from childhood. I'm trying to heal the childhood
Yeah.
stuff, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I did a lot of EMDR and I try to tell people to do it, but it's so hard for me to explain the process. And I'm telling you, it has fixed so much.
Did you do tapping?
I did tapping, yeah. And I actually did it. I see my therapist through Zoom and I do it through tapping on my legs like this. And I absolutely love it. I do it once a week.
That's amazing. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you had such a great experience. And something else that's cool is there were a lot of shifts in the mental health industry after COVID. So we see a lot more telehealth happening, and it can be a really great tool for clients to help them stay consistent. Because a lot of times seeing a therapist means going between Monday and Friday, and you know, an hour of therapy. You're commuting on either side of that. That can be really difficult for people to maintain. So I feel like having a telehealth option can be really amazing for people.
Yeah. And you guys do that, of course, right? Yeah.
And this is in the middle of Beverly Hills. How woke for Beverly Hills to be offering, I mean, it sounds fabulous.
I do the majority of my sessions via telehealth. Which is fantastic. But we also do workshops and all sorts of things. I also work with Pineapple Support. Are you familiar?
I was going to say, is there, and I feel like Pineapple Support, is that something new that was created for therapy for the industry, or what is Pineapple Support?
It was founded by Leah Tannett, and she was in the adult industry. She saw that there was a need and not always access. So when you're in the adult industry, a lot of times you may not have access to like workplace healthcare plans that people that are working more traditional jobs might. So making sure that people had access. It's they subsidize therapy. So I also do sliding scale care specifically for my sex worker clients. When I'm doing more traditional sex therapy, you know, there's less wiggle room there. But I feel very, very strongly that anyone that is seeking care deserves to have affirmative care that gets them where they feel safe and that doesn't, you know, make their life more stressful when they're worried about how to pay for it.
So is Pineapple Support like a big thing in the industry right now? People are aware of Pineapple Support, like, you know, the whole industry is aware that that's where they can go find help, or how do you guys kind of like advertise?
Well, I get the word out through, I mean, a variety of different things. You know, I have like flyers that are at like testing sites and things like that. And then also, so with Pineapple Support specifically, it is something that a lot of people in the industry are familiar with. But people can either approach me directly or find me through Pineapple. But it's a really great organization that has provided care for literally thousands of performers.
Really? Wow, so this has been around for a while then.
It has, and it's done a lot of good.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm so happy this didn't exist when I was in the industry, or at least I wasn't aware of it. And I'm so happy to see that there are people that are realizing that there is a need for mental health in that industry. And just like any industry, but there was definitely no access, and there was definitely no support to try to even find, you know, through agencies or whatever for therapy. Because when you're 18, you're not even really sure where to look, you know, like, where do you really look for a therapist?
Absolutely. And what you were saying as well, that, you know, sex work is like a lot of careers in some ways, and then in other ways it's not. Like dealing with stigma, dealing with doxing, dealing with the emotional labor that comes along with the job, sort of navigating that space of authenticity, where it's like, hey, like, I love my job, but maybe I don't want to work for free. Maybe I don't want to work all day, every day. Maybe it's impossible for me to be turned on 24/7. But I still love my job, and this is still what I want to do. And I also think that there's a lot less space for people within the industry to talk about what they do. When we talk about social media, for example, like saying sex work can, you know, get your account taken from you.
It can, right? And then some accounts can and some can't, right?
One that really surprised me is Pineapple Support, I think, has been on Twitter for something like 8 years. And earlier this year, they got banned for several weeks.
On Twitter?
On Twitter? That's gotta be hard.
There was right. On Twitter is really hard, but there was a problem where every porn star's Instagram was deleted. It did not matter. If you were a porn star, Instagram would delete you. It didn't matter if you posted your dogs. I got deleted probably so many times and had to recreate accounts, and I would post my dogs. I wouldn't post nude. I wouldn't tag companies. It was basically a personal page, and they would delete you.
I just had this conversation with someone this morning about like, because there was a video actually of you, and there was like, you could see for 5 seconds like a nipple come across the screen, and there's
on
so
Instagram?
many. Yeah, and no, it's not on Instagram. They were trying to convince me that we should post it, and I was like, no, there's a different set of rules. Somehow Instagram has these people on like
their radar.
Because there are fashion shows where people have their nipples fully showing and it's on Instagram, but if they don't have any background in being, you know, on OnlyFans or anything like that, they somehow get away with it. Like, it's really a double standard, and it's so weird. I mean,
sad.
honestly, my nipples are fine on Instagram, and like no one ever bans them. No one wants to see them either, but they
I thought Instagram was going to switch it to where
yes,
nipples
free
were
the
okay.
nipples. That's why everyone was doing free the nipple, because I was like, come on, this is ridiculous.
Well, it's really frustrating. And yes, it's absolutely a double standard. But, you know, if you're in the industry, that can create income insecurity. It's like, how am I reaching out to my fan base? Like,
You can't.
Yeah.
you built something and then it's taken away. And yes, there is that double standard where you'll see like a celebrity that's posting stuff that's pretty lewd.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
There was
they
this
seem to
one
be
guy,
fine.
who was it that just posted a whole picture of his dick, and it was just like, how has this been up for 4 hours?
Yeah,
or it's like
and it's
longer
not
than that.
taken down.
And it wasn't taken down. Yet if there's a nipple, like once Elsa posted a photo shoot from Playboy, and it had a nipple on a screen in the background, and it
Yeah.
was just so tiny.
Tiny.
And I looked at this photo like probably 20 times and still couldn't see it. And then I was like, oh, there it is. How the fuck are they seeing this? I mean, and also, why would you care
It was
that
like
much?
a reflection or something, and there was a nipple.
Yes.
Well, I do think that our country has a lot of very like puritanical foundations that like when we see this sort of like the
Yes.
policing of like the human body, you know, obviously there's stuff that should be kept away from minors, but at the same time too, it's like, hey, if somebody's in a bathing suit and they're getting deleted, like why are we so uncomfortable with what it means to be human? But this has like major implications too for people that are within the industry, right? So you've got this, you're navigating the space between stigma and intrigue, right? So people are, oh, like it's you know, they've been in porn or they have an OnlyFans and everybody's talking. And to some degree, like you can profit off of that and you want to capitalize on the interest that comes along.
Yeah.
But there's also this stigma that it's like, hey, everybody has sex. Well, not everybody, but the
Most
majority
people.
of, you know,
Yeah.
people engage in sex at some point of their life. And as long as it's safe, consensual, it's not a bad thing.
Well, and things like nipples, I mean, come on, they're literally used like when you're a baby, like everyone's seen nipples, you know what that is. I mean, the other day I was listening to that Doja Cat song and the shit was like bleeped out. I'm like, you can't say shit on the radio. Like, to your point about being a puritanic like place, like everything has to be so it's like,
So I have a question. If somebody wants to get in any type of sex work, what do you think is the healthiest way?
Well,
Going straight into therapy and then joining, or joining with therapy, or
I think therapy should happen when somebody knows it's the right step for them.
Okay.
But when I think about people that are new getting into the industry, I would say, you know, do your homework ahead of time, know what to expect, take steps to be safe. Doxing is definitely an issue like within the industry. So even if you aren't doing in-person sex work, you still want to make sure that your address isn't available online, that you're staying safe and not sharing too much information with maybe fans on an OnlyFans or whatever, and really taking steps to be safe in that way. So that's some advice that I would give people that are new
That's
to
good.
the industry, but and also figuring out what side of sex work works for them. You know, everyone has different limits, and you know there are some people that like prefer
just stripping.
absolutely, or I don't want to have my my face online. I can blur it in ads, and I can do escorting. I don't want to have an OnlyFans. Great, that's what works for you.
How do you feel about escorting being illegal?
Well, my position is decrim sex work.
Yeah.
Just entirely across the board.
Yeah.
We need to make it safe for people to come forward without fear of getting in trouble with law enforcement. Also, too, like when we talk about sex trafficking, a huge component that completely gets overlooked is immigration policy. So like so many people that are in bad situations are forced to stay in bad situations because they can't come forward for fear of being deported.
Wow.
You know, we need to address some of these issues that are often ignored.
I never even thought about that. Yeah, because what are they supposed to do? They're going to get sent back home, right? Wow, that's really upsetting. That's, yeah. Well,
What are some of the biggest problems that someone will come to you with, like when they're like, okay,
is she allowed to answer that?
Burnout. Burnout is super common.
right.
Sex work has a lot of emotional labor involved. It's kind of like being a therapist in a way.
I was going to say, like, you know, I've done every type of sex work. I've been very open about that. And one of them would be upsetting for me is the constant talking. The constant talking that I would have to do with these people where I'm like, it's not interesting for me, but I was getting paid to talk to them, and it was more exhausting for me mentally.
Well, and to my point about authenticity, so like you've got to be fun, you've got to be, you know, interested and engaged, because that's what's marketable. And it's like the person versus the persona, you know, like being able to kind of compartmentalize, be like, okay, this is me at work, and this is who I know myself to authentically be.
Yeah, that's hard. That gets really tricky when you have to flip back and forth almost all day long.
Yeah.
Do you lose sight of like who you are when you're having to put on like a show 24/7?
Absolutely. I've been very confused at times of who I truly am. I've been confused at what I even like in men, or even if I even like men, because they've kind of ruined it for me at times, you know. And then there's been times where I retired, and I really took that year to really figure out what I liked, who I was, how sexual am I really, you know, all this kind of things. Because I started when I was 18. I was shooting almost every day. I was burnt out. I never
thought of it like that. You are like, your job is catering to other people and their desire, or their, like, you're playing a role for each person. So like that, what is it called? The dissociative, or like that disorder? Bowen Yang had it recently.
Dissociative identity disorder?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that, where it was... What was
and then
that?
you can't please everybody. So then there's millions and millions of people watching you. But if they don't like the way you look in this thing, or you change this about yourself, then they're upset. But then these people start liking it. And it can be very confusing to what you like as a person, for sure. That's why I'm so happy that they have this pineapple.
I mean, the fact that sex work is real work, I mean, it sounds exhausting to me, actually.
It's a lot of work. Now, when you consider, like, the internet has done amazing things for sex work in some ways.
Yeah.
But it's also requires you to be an editor, to know how to light yourself, to, you know, obviously perform, be your own hair and makeup artist, and then interact with fans. Yeah. So there's this, I think some of the exhaustion can sometimes be associated with like that content mill of like needing to constantly create, but you're playing all of these roles.
Yeah.
And it can be pretty exhausting, because what people see looks so effortless and easy, but it's like maybe you spent 2 hours doing your hair, setting up your lights. Maybe you rented a location off of like Pure Space or something like that to shoot. There's a lot that goes into what looks so effortless.
Do you know how much I love, though, the OnlyFans generation of women now being able to take their power back and like literally making more than any man could dream of? And men have always objectified women and made it like they are the ones that can run the world. They control everything. They control the wallet strings, everything like that. And now all of a sudden, like, women are like, okay, we're going to use what you guys found so interesting about us. We're going to monetize that for ourselves, and we're going to make so much money that we can end up, you know, starting our own businesses and doing everything, and like just taking this huge power shift back, and then just buying everything off all the men. I mean, it's kind of amazing how that has worked.
Yeah, the like monetizing the attention that you're already getting.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Now, given there's a lot of people that have feelings about that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, like, you know, you've heard some of the things that people will say over time. It's like, oh, get a real job. Or like, I'm doing like 6 real jobs here. It's like, you know, what I feel like,
totally,
you know, people in the industry are experiencing.
And being a parent and being a wife, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
people don't realize
that's
that.
another layer too. Like, if you are in sex work and you have a kid, like, you can do everything in the world to keep your work completely away from your kid, but you're still going to have to worry about, like, hey, if I'm going through a divorce, you know, is my work going to be used against me when it comes to custody?
Right.
Sometimes people do that, and it's really unfortunate. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff that is unique to the industry, but at the same time, there's a lot of similarity, which is like work is work. Some days are good, some days are bad. Sometimes you love going into the office, and other days you're like, oh God, I need some time off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so fans, they'll leave voicemails with questions. So here's one.
As in 2023, how do you make a relationship strong and built to last? My name is Christian Schrock. Number is 843.
Oh, you probably should not put his number.
That's fine. We can edit it.
So he was saying in this current time, what do you think are ways to make a relationship last? You know how social media affects everything.
Communication. I know it sounds trite, but being able to communicate and not doing a lot of guesswork, I feel like is so important to a strong relationship. And that can mean communicating your own needs as well. A lot of times resentments will build up if somebody isn't getting what they need, but maybe it hasn't been communicated or communicated in a way that the other partner has heard and internalized. So I think speaking to what is important to you, making and maintaining healthy boundaries, I think, is also important. I think relationships thrive when it's two separate people with their own lives that choose each other every day. And it's so much more interesting.
Yes.
Like if you're spending all of your time with a partner, what are you talking about?
Well,
you get to go out in the world, go do something exciting and come back and share it with your partner and talk about how exciting
if you can't
that
do
was.
anything without them, you're going to know exactly where they are, what they're doing, and they can't, you're like, oh, well, they need me for like everything. So like that's not attractive to, what does Oprah say? Sorry to be like cheese, but like she's like, oh yeah, a relationship should be complementary, not supplementary, meaning you don't need to supplement each other to survive. You just complement each other, come back to each other at the end of the day, and you know, how was your day? How was this? And oh, that's so great. Like holding you on a pedestal.
And I think when you expect one person to be so much in your life, that's a lot of pressure. So like having friends that you can talk to and, having workplace relationships and things that you're excited about. So that person isn't your joy, like your excitement, your confidant, your sexual partner, I think it takes a lot of pressure out of the relationship and makes more space for something healthy to grow.
Our next question is really good because I don't know much about trauma bonding. So this person says, my partner and I are both survivors of emotional abusive relationships, active therapy goers, and are working hard to avoid trauma bonding. But we share our difficulties, such as our common ground to bond over. How do we strengthen our relationship and not ruin it?
I would say a little bit of psychoeducation, looking into attachment styles could be really helpful for them. There's some fantastic books. One is called Attached, and it's by Levine, and I can't remember the second author. But I feel like that's a really approachable book that talks about attachment styles, how they're created, what that means in a relationship, and how we can kind of recognize when we're operating in something that maybe is speaking more to our emotional needs than what we rationally want.
Would you suggest someone that's coming from a relationship like that to speak about that, or that's not even something to speak about? Because, it seems like he's saying that they have such a common thing. So, would you suggest people to like be so open about what happened in those relationships, or keep it, away from the new relationship?
I think that as long as there's not too much focus being placed on an ex, I do think that is something that you can communicate about. Specifically what I kind of got from that was, hey, we both came from emotionally abusive relationships, which sometimes it's like, hey, I'm imagining a person who's dating someone that maybe has a more avoidant attachment style where they're constantly catering to that person or being mistreated. Now we're in a relationship together. We want to make sure that we aren't repeating some of these patterns and bringing in like the behaviors that maybe informed the dynamic of the previous relationship.
Yeah. Thanks. That one's such a good one because on one of our episodes, I had to skip over it because someone's like, how do I avoid trauma bonding? I was like, I got to even just go and find a checklist of what even trauma bonding is to look, you know what I mean? Like, what are the signs even of that, you know?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they're both doing the work too, if they're both in therapy as well. And I think that okay, so also with couples therapy, for example, kind of the suggested way to go about it is that that you have a couples therapist, and then people will see individual therapy, individual therapists on their own. That way, you don't end up in that weird triangulation where your safe place is also the place where you're, discussing things that are going on in your relationship and feeling like maybe the therapist doesn't like you, or things are being said that you feel are sort of like almost like an industry crosstalk where a therapist is talking about, your partner and you're bringing that back, and it can get messy. It's not suggested.
Okay, interesting. And then what's the signs of trauma bonds?
Signs of trauma bonding would be,
love bombing, I heard was
you
one.
You would
no?
love bombing, just immediately, like, you are my world, like a lot of focus, a lot of attention, replacing other relationships that are really important in your life with that one person. So when I'm saying like, hey, like, it's really good to have friends and to have things that are outside of your relationship. I think that helps keep things healthy. And I think that investigating and being curious about your own reactions and doing the work of going to therapy. Now, therapy, isn't an option for everyone. And
You said it isn't?
Isn't an option.
Oh, really?
Well, some people don't have insurance. They don't have access.
Okay. You mean like that. Okay,
yeah. Which is really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But there are, other options around. There are like drop-in groups, for example.
My therapist actually gave me the link to people who are right out of school in therapy, and they're not charging that much per hour. Like, they were like $150 to $200 per hour, which people don't realize is a lot cheaper than mine's $500 an hour. So that's a lot cheaper.
It's a big difference. Also, people that are in their traineeships, a lot of times will see people for free.
Oh, okay.
So if you're going to a clinic, like an LGBT clinic or something like that in LA, chances are you're meeting with a trainee. Now, given, I will say it's not a bad thing. There's actually a lot less industry complaints for people that are newly out of school because we're still so familiar with law and ethics, how to hold those boundaries. We're not like, I kind of do things my own way because I've been doing this for 30 years or whatever. So I think it's a great option that helps make therapy available. And then also too, there are orgs like Pineapple Support if you're in a specific industry, if you're a veteran or, have been in certain lines of work. Sometimes there are options that are specific, like, to your own, past history. Might be available.
I am 25, female, and anal sex terrifies me.
Oh, yeah.
I tried it once with an ex-boyfriend for his birthday, and I didn't prepare properly. It was a horrible experience. I hear it's a lot of fun when done right, but I'm scared for now. He certainly was.
Okay. Well, I wish she said more about what specifically
scared her.
Rather it was pain, rather like maybe she hadn't douched, rather the partner was like more aggressive than she thought he would be, like, in that scenario, and
not enough lube maybe or something.
Yeah, a lot of different elements. I'm curious what.
And too quick. It's always that for me. Like, honestly, when people think that they can just like go right in or not have any like, I mean, it has to be done in a way where that first point of penetration is done slow. Like, you can maybe work from a 1 up to a 6, 7. Like, after you got to start at that very like. I mean, to enter, like, it needs to be relaxed, and then it's not going to be relaxed like the moment, and I mean, unless you're using something else.
Yeah, and if this is something that she decides that she does want to try again, I'm also curious, like, what her perspective is on it. Is it something that she also wanted to try, or is it something
he wanted for his birthday?
Yeah, that she so like kind of performed as a gift. But if it is something that she does genuinely want to explore, I would suggest maybe getting some butt plugs in graduated sizes so she can kind of work up to her partner's size.
You know what I learned yesterday? Okay, so the vaginal wall dips down, and it dips down further and further as you grow older. So I never realized why women would even have anal sex, because I'm like, they don't have a gland down there that would, massage their prostate like with guys. But it's the pressure that it applies, which is why a lot of women like using a butt plug while they're having sex is because it
that's
pushes
my
the wall up
favorite
further,
thing, yeah.
and then it's able to stimulate you
The
better
clip,
because the
maybe?
wall is pushed in by something being in the rear. So
Mm-hmm.
that was so like, I was like, that makes sense. Like, I get why that would be better than for women, because I'm like, wow, is it just in their heads? Or like, I get why it works for guys, but now I get it. It's because it's pushing the pressure.
And it's different. It's like,
Yeah.
it's always fun
But
to have.
literally, physically, yeah, too.
Okay, next one is, you want to say it? 'Cause
I'm 35 and male. Only like to have sex when I'm drunk. Is that strange? I don't feel horny sober like ever. It may be the reason it's hard for me to hold down a relationship. People get mad that I'm not a super sexy guy, but get a few in me and you can't beat me off a person. Or you can. Haha. Oh my God. This speaks to me. Like, I have not had sex
then
because...
answer. Oh, you only have sex when you're intoxicated?
Yes. And I
Interesting.
am like sober a little bit now and I haven't had sex, and that terrifies me.
To have sex sober.
Well, everyone's used to that though. Even when I speak to friends, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. I think you're probably good with that. I think I've heard you say, but like, I think most people have a little bit of something in them, like liquid courage.
I mean, it definitely makes you feel more sexual
With
and
a new
more
person.
free. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Like,
But every
how-
time seems
How am I ever
interesting.
going to get to a place where like you can actually go up to a stranger and have
Well,
like...
you don't have to go up to a stranger and ask them. It doesn't have to be a stranger. You can have sex with someone that you've known for months, a year, whatever you want
That's
to
true too.
do. It doesn't have to be a
But
stranger.
who's dating for months these days without
I
having
just
sex?
went on a date and the guy didn't have sex with me, and we've made boundaries where we're not going to have sex. We're going to date, and
For how long?
for as long as we feel like it's appropriate.
I love that.
So it is in
Yeah. Okay, so I just need to
you
set
don't
better
have to have sex,
boundaries.
right? He doesn't have to have sex with a stranger if
Yeah.
you don't want to. That's
Well, no, I
Agreed,
just
and I
mean-
think it can be really sexy too. Like, there is a therapeutic approach too, where you take sex off the table, and it can
make it better, right?
Oh my God. Because when it's off the table and it's not something that either one of you like feel obligated to do, also you feel like maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
It can add something that's like really sexy.
Yeah.
And
See, why don't you see?
and if you mess up, everybody still wins.
Mhm, yeah. Yeah. See, that's what you need to maybe communicate from the beginning. I don't like to have sex until I've gotten to know somebody for a while, and that it could be one day or it can be
And I'm
5
just not
months.
used to it. So like
Yeah.
once you can actually do that sober a couple of times, like just because like literally the only sex I've ever had my whole life has been at least like a drink in, unless
you've
I've
been
been
in a
there with that
relationship.
person
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
I'm like, what? How would we like? It would feel like silly. Like we're in here like, yeah, we're gonna fuck. It's like
You could be, but you could go over and watch a movie, and you guys are laying next to each other for a while, and then
Yeah.
somebody gets hard, and then you start making out, and then you have sex. It doesn't have to be like you guys start eyeing each other down, and then they gotta like.
but yeah, we're all such like porn stars when
Yeah.
we're drunk. Like, you know, everyone feels like a porn star then.
And I would give yourself some grace right now too.
Yeah.
It sounds like you went through a huge transition. If you've only had sex in one context, of course it's going to take a second before
Yeah.
you feel comfortable doing something new. So I'd give yourself a little grace
I'm
on
trying
that.
to, yeah. I'm like, is it
Are
ever
you
going to happen
horny?
again, or do I have
Are
to
you
just
just not
drink again?
horny?
No, I am. I'm getting there again now. Yeah.
So you're saying basically what this guy's saying. He's not horny unless he's drunk. So you
Yeah.
just throughout the day, you're never
Oh, yeah.
horny unless you have a drink.
Well, also, like, it's like a double addiction. Like, you associate that with, oh,
Mm-hmm.
now I can have sex. So then it comes to your mind. Like, it's like when I would do other like party drugs and stuff out, it would be like, oh, like something else would go off in your brain because it reminds you this is what you associate with that. You do that and that's what you get. So like it just comes up. But it's all about breaking those patterns and creating new thought patterns. So it's just going to be the first ripping of the Band-Aid off will be, I mean, honestly.
But kind of exciting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It could be great. I mean, imagine what I could be missing out on something that.
Really fun.
But I'm not weird for that. Like a lot of people
No, not at all.
definitely are like, they're like, how the fuck would you do that? Like when I've talked to people about getting sober, they're like, how the fuck? Like, are you going to
No,
ever?
I don't think
like-
that's weird at all because I'm trying to actually think of a time where I met somebody and I didn't meet them at a bar somewhere where there was already a drink that I consumed.
Yeah.
It would be unless I was working, I guess.
Well, because
it'd
that's
be-
how, like, it's a culture. Like, people just in general in, like, Western world, like, they have a drink when they're out socializing and, like, it's part of that whole thing. Yeah.
Well, and to
Yeah.
bring it back to kind of our puritanical foundations and how uncomfortable so many people are with
Yes.
sex, I think that having something in your
Right.
system to kind of make it less of an anxious experience when you want to approach someone and you're nervous and you're afraid that they're going to judge you for flirting or whatever it is. You know, if this is somebody that you know is okay with you flirting with them and like, you know, making advances, then like, you know, it should be something that I don't know, that we are able to approach without needing something to kind of calm that anxiety.
Yeah.
What would you tell somebody who has a really, because one of our top questions is people saying, how do I go up to somebody and talk to them? Like, how do I engage? And like, so if somebody came to you and they're like, I'm so nervous, I can't go up and speak to a female, but I really want to start dating, what would you recommend their first step would be?
Well, I would be curious where all the anxiety is coming from, right?
Okay.
So like, you know, feeling like, oh, like I can't have sex unless I have some, you know, something in my system. It's like, okay, where's the anxiety coming from? Let's figure out what's informing that feeling and, you know, track it in our body. And are we uncomfortable with sex? Are we uncomfortable with our own body? Are we uncomfortable with rejection? Just kind of figuring out where that's coming from.
Is there too many people in the room? Do I need to be in a place where there's not so many people? Because that makes me anxious. Because there's people who, you know, don't like to be in crowded places.
Am I approaching people I have nothing in common with? So I'm afraid that I'm not going to have anything relevant to say to them. There's a bunch of different things to think about.
Why do you think that young people are not having sex now until their 30s? Like, you know, there's so many 30-plus-year-old virgins out there. Like, so many. Is it like social media? Is it like an OnlyFans thing? Is it like there's so... I've been reading all these reports about how guys aren't losing their virginity until... I was just listening on another podcast as well.
Later
like there's a huge
ever.
thing now. Yeah, it's later than ever. Like maybe it was COVID as well that happened. Like that's set them back a couple of years. Also people working remote or having remote jobs that don't require human interaction. Like people just aren't losing their virginity. I think I just answered my own question. But like, isn't that interesting?
I think you did answer your own question. I think it has to do a lot with people just so want to be at home so much. Everybody just, it's a little bit, everybody's kind of scared of each other too.
Yeah.
Honestly. Most scared of people just, I don't know. People can do anything, say anything, hurt your feelings. I think people are scared of their feelings being hurt.
Yes. Well, you just got to put yourself out there and be okay with getting
Hypocrite.
shut down.
Hypocrite.
I can say it, but I can't do it. That's exactly why we're here, talking through our issues. We'll get it eventually. Thank you so much for coming,
Thank you
Renee.
for having me.
This has been fun.
Did you want to plug anything? Did you want to say again the place that you work at? And
If people want to find me, I am on social media as Renee AMFT, or you can visit XXXtherapist.com. That's XXXtherapist.com.
and they can book you individually from your social medias? Or
They can find my website is on there.
Okay.
We get in touch. We'll book a consult and go from there and see if it's a fit.
thank you for
Love
coming.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
Bye.